The first recorded references to what would become Missouri City, Missouri, were made by the Lewis and Clark expedition on its way up the Missouri River in June of 1804. Several communities were platted in the early half of the 19th century on the river in southeast Clay County and combined into the Missouri City community. Steamboats docked at the wharf, where the bounty of the land was shipped to market before the Civil War intruded. In the early 1870s, the railroad brought new commerce to the town. It has suffered a series of devastating floods, the most recent in 1993, but has persevered. Resident Jay Jackson dreams of marking and restoring the remaining historic structures and narrates our tour.
Okay, this is the 1853 Sam Nallon house, built in 1853 by James Reed, and it was purchased by Brian Nallon, who was Sam's father. And then when Sam became 21 in 1859, he gave it to Sam. Sam then joined the Missouri State Guard in 1861 in September, after goes off to war for about 6 months in the Missouri State Guard, became a captain under Colonel Gideon W. Thompson, and after the Battle of Lexington and Pea Ridge, he came home and tried to live in peace and be in the store business with his father in what we call the Nallon store, or the old bank building. This is a 2-story frame built on 12 by 12 timbers set on rocks, no foundation. That's just the way that they built them at that time. This house that we're beginning to see is an 1856 2-story frame up behind those trees. The fellow who owns it now said, "Oh no, that belonged to Winfrey." Winfrey was a slave trader. That's how he made his living. He built most of the houses here, including the Bristow Twyman house, was just a couple down, we call it that. He says it was built in 1856 and it had arched windows instead of the square or rectangular windows that it has now. I believe that the bay window is not original curving staircase. And in the wall going up the staircase is a niche. A long time ago, he tore down a 1.5-story brick, what he calls slave quarters. I would guess it more to be the kitchen, but he said this fellow was a slave trader, and he had slaves on and off, and that they would live in this house or summer kitchen behind it. And it overlooks the river. If you're on his front porch, you could see the river, and it also is sitting on 12 by 12 oak beams, no foundation.
Why did they do that?
I don't know. It was something they had plenty of, and I don't know why they thought. I guess maybe they thought inaccurately that it could last forever. They're sitting up on rock, one rock every so often, but by and large the 12 by 12 will carry, and it's back when they had that native timber that you could get a 40-foot. Bristow Twyman house, I remember having curved top. Where on the doors where they have 2 glasses side by side and they're both curved, it had that on the bottom and the top door. The windows were replaced with modern windows. The original railing for the staircase is still there. It's interesting. It's not fancy or ornate, but it's of the period.
Right. And they had property just across the river here.
Yeah.
Sam Nallon's store, built in 1858, later the Missouri City Bank, still stands at the corner of Doniphan and Main. Sam served in the Missouri State Guard with Frank James. On May 19, 1863, Frank and 12 other Southern guerrillas plundered Sam's store for tobacco and such. They had just killed the mayor of Missouri City, Union Captain Darius Sessions, a known abolitionist and member of the 25th Enrolled Militia, for insulting and locking up Frank's friend Llewellyn McCoy. The guerrillas also killed Union Lieutenant Graffenstein. It was made to look like a robbery so that Nallon would not be harassed by Federal troops. Just 6 days later, Union troops retaliated by hanging Frank James' stepfather until oxygen depletion ruined his brain, and whipped 16-year-old Jesse James, who would or could not reveal the whereabouts of his brother Frank. The next year, on January 20th, 1864, 40 of Jennison's Kansas Jayhawks, under a man calling himself Major Sanders, robbed Sam Nallon's store of $2,000 worth of goods.
Nallon, or the Nallon family grave site. I was thinking always that the mayor, Sessions, who was killed by Frank James' group, was up here, but he wasn't. He was buried at Liberty, and his lieutenant was from St. Joseph, Graffenstein. They took him up to St. Joseph, but there are other Civil War veterans in this cemetery, and they say the cemetery goes back to 1823, and it was called Rose Hill Cemetery. The sign now is 1856, and that's what everyone says that the cemetery was officially started, and I guess that's the Missouri City Cemetery, but even that doesn't make sense because Missouri City wasn't used as a name until 1859 when the state chartered it as a special charter city, putting together St. Bernard, Atchison, Richfield, and Rose's Branch as small communities. But each of these emerging business people laid out different towns and thought that was going to be the new Mecca, and then they all decided to go together and become Missouri City in 1859. So this was why it was called Missouri City prior to the town being called that, I don't know. And cholera became a problem in the 1850s, almost wiped out Missouri City, I think in 54 or 55. But they said, hey, we're the booming commercial center of Clay County. Kearney wasn't happening, Smithville wasn't happening, North Kansas City didn't exist, Gladstone didn't exist. Liberty did, but it was off the river. In 1990, we voluntarily took students from the Kansas City School District. They were in the midst of that desegregation lawsuit. We were not. And the Attorney General of the state of Missouri asked districts around Kansas City to voluntarily take students as part of the whole process of settling that desegregation issue. No one would do it. We did, and that lasted for 12 years. As far as we know, it's the only time in U.S. history where a district not involved in a court case were involved in voluntarily integrating. Well, that's what we were told by different people. Our school board also believed that we should do this, and they also stated that our responsibility didn't end at our school district boundary. That, quote unquote, those children elsewhere are our children, not those children.